is here, and with it comes the opportunity to add fresh, sweet touches to our homes. Today I'll be making 2 different wreaths, a cute little goose garland, decorating my hutch, and sprucing up the bedroom. I hope you'll join me. This first wreath really couldn't be simpler. Using a thrifted grapevine wreath form and a bundle of pussy willow branches from Trader Joe's, I just pushed the branches into the wreath form, going around in a spiral formation, and it made a really simple, primitive, but pretty wreath for the entryway. I love using real flowers and greenery in my decor, so when I saw these bundles of dried flowers from Trader Joe's, I knew they could be turned into a beautiful spring wreath. Some of them are dried florals and greenery, and then some of the flowers are made out of wood shavings, which I think is really neat. So again, I just took a thrifted grapevine wreath and pushed the branches into the wreath. I like to start with the filler materials first, and then save the pretty accents like the wood flowers for last. This wreath was a little bit more of an investment than my average wreath project. Each bundle of dried flowers was about $15, and I needed 3 of them for this size grapevine wreath. But if I use it indoors only, and store it safely, it should last for a long time. And really, you would pay probably much more than that if you purchased one at a craft fair or on Etsy or something like that, just for the amount of time and skill that goes into making one. So it is still a budget-friendly DIY. I find it helpful sometimes when I'm making a wreath to temporarily hang it up while I'm working, as it can give a better sense of the balance and just helps me to determine where I want to put the last pieces and if anything needs to be rearranged. If you ever see a beautiful teapot at the thrift store that's missing its lid, don't pass it up. It can make a beautiful vase for flowers on your table. I found this one that was made in Bavaria around the 1920s to 30s at the thrift store for $1.50. I very much enjoy making seasonal garlands for my English pine hutch, and I wanted to do something fun and sweet for springtime. So I decided to make a little goose garland out of felt. I started out by drawing a goose shape onto paper. And using that as my pattern, I cut out 16 white goose body pieces, 2 for each goose I wanted to make. And then 2 feet for each goose on orange felt. After I had all my pieces cut out, I hot glued the body pieces together, leaving a small gap at the bottom for stuffing with a little bit of fluff and inserting the orange feet. After I sealed that up, I also cut out little orange triangles for the beaks and glued those on. I used a Sharpie to make a little dot for the eye. And I tied just a little bit of scrap fabric around the neck, just to make it extra sweet. As much as I liked the goose garland, I felt like it really needed something in the center. So originally I tried just tying a scrap piece of fabric as a bow, but it still felt a little bit lacking, so I decided to make a puffy bow to go in the middle. You may have seen the viral puffy bow going around social media. I decided to make a hot glued version so I didn't have to sew it. I started out by using this old thrifted shirt I found as fabric, and then I cut out a few pieces. I cut out a rectangle for the center of the bow. I cut out a long, very long rectangle for the tails, and I cut out a smaller rectangle for the center. And then I treated it just as if I was sewing it. I glued right sides together, leaving just a little gap to turn it right side out, stuff it, and then glue it shut. sometimes get asked where I find all of my vintage china, and the answer is that it is pretty much all thrifted. The other day at the thrift store, I had an incredible find of a set of 4 bowls in the blue onion pattern made in Germany. I'm not sure of the date, but I fell in love with them. They're just so beautiful. I got them for $10. I wanted to stack them to display them, so I put bags of rice in between each bowl, which raised it up but also gave it some stability as the rice kind of molded to the bottom of each bowl. I have been astounded with how well these succulents have done in these teacups. I stuck them in there, I believe, last year, and they have just thrived. They're still in their individual pots, and I just pour water into the bottom of the teacup every 2 or 3 weeks, and they seem to like that. On a totally different topic, Trader Joe's has the cutest greeting cards for 99 cents a piece. And when I was checking out the other day, my cashier mentioned that her mother likes to frame them and put them in little places around the house. And I've actually thought about doing that too. So I decided to finally try that in this little thrifted frame. And I know it's not Easter yet, but this one was just cute and springy. So I decided to add it to my hutch. And I'm happy to report that baby girl finally got her own silhouette up on the wall, even though she's not much of a baby anymore. She's getting pretty big, but I purposely waited until she was a little bit older so that her facial features were a little more defined. The beige lampshades in our bedroom have been feeling pretty plain and lackluster for a while, especially against the plain wall. I wanted to change them out with something more interesting, but lampshades can be so expensive, especially the pretty fancy ones. So I found these plain white knife pleat lampshades from, I think it was Walmart, for $19 a piece, which is much less than a designer lampshade. And I got some fabric and decided to make my own. Now, some of these designer lampshades can cost anywhere from $50 to $100 a piece. I've even seen some for $150. So basically spending about $25 per lampshade really was not too bad. I used 2 yards of fabric for the 2 shades. Now, the height of the fabric, or the width of the fabric, I should say, was tall enough for 1 lampshade, but it needed the length of 2 yards to go all the way around. Because there are so many little pleats, it takes much more fabric than you might think to get down in all of those little pleats. I used a spray adhesive to attach the fabric, which gives a much smoother finish than trying to use something like hot glue. I suggest working in smaller swatches of fabric because trying to deal with an entire 2 yards of fabric at one time is very unwieldy. It might seem a little awkward at first, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be in the groove and you will get through it. Just to turn on some music or do it while you watch a show or do it outside and enjoy some nature while you're doing a project. I found it the easiest to put my thumb in the pleat I had already done to hold it in place while my other fingers pushed the next pleat down into place. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Do try to avoid getting the spray adhesive on the outside of the fabric because it will leave a bit of a sticky residue and an odd texture, and you don't want that spoiling the outside of your shade. You can trim off the excess as you go, or you can save it all for the end. It's totally up to you. And then I found that hot glue actually works the best for tucking the tabs of fabric over the top and under the bottom. I tried it with the spray adhesive and it worked okay, but hot glue seemed the most secure. I'm really very pleased with how they turned out. I think they're super cute, and I spent far less than I would have buying them already made like that. I will say they very slightly cut down on the amount of light that the lamp puts out because there is that double layer of fabric. But as long as you choose a light colored fabric that's thin, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And if you want to remedy it even further, you can put in a brighter bulb. I'm considering doing my first ever Q&A video soon, so if you have a question for me or something you'd like to know more about, feel free to drop a comment below. I'll also be collecting questions over on Instagram if you prefer to ask over there. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe for more cottage living, and I'll see you next time.